Hello and welcome to This Explainer. Today we're embarking on what's essentially a masterclass in transforming our spaces, whether that's classrooms, meeting rooms, or really any space for discussion, from these exhausting arenas of verbal combat into places of profound intellectual discovery. So if you've ever felt like modern discussions are just people yelling past each other, well, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to explore the architect of true inquiry, a full-stack guide to running Socratic seminars and genuine dialectical discussions. Okay, let's dive into this. We really need to starkly contrast the exhausting outrage of modern debate with the noble pursuit of dialectical inquiry. You see, argument, which is what we see constantly today, aims to defeat. It leans heavily on emotion, and it purely seeks a victory. It's frankly exhausting. But dialectic? Now that is entirely different. Dialectic aims to discover truth. It welcomes correction, and it refines our collective understanding. It's not about humiliating an opponent, it's about building knowledge together. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be covering 1. Beyond mere verbal combat. 2. Preparing the scholar. 3. Rules of engagement. 4. Structuring the arena. 5. Mastering rhetoric. And 6. The educational purpose. Think of me as your intellectual coach today, guiding you all the way from the high-level philosophy right down to the practical implementation. Let's get to it. Section 1. Beyond mere verbal combat. The philosophy of inquiry. Now, as we get into this, it's absolutely crucial to remember that the ultimate goal of discourse isn't to score cheap points, but to achieve true intellectual maturity. So what is the real purpose of a dialectical classroom? Well, it's to pursue truth, clarify our thinking, and put our ideas under intense scrutiny to see if they actually hold up. Through this dialogue, we refine our understanding and become deeply intellectually disciplined. And for this to work, the traditional dynamic has to completely shift. The teacher transforms from a lecturer dispensing facts into an intellectual coach, while the students go from passive listeners to active scholars. I may be wrong. Let us examine the evidence together. Really, just let that sink in for a second. This simple sentence is the absolute bedrock of intellectual maturity. If you can instill this single ethos into a group of learners, honestly, you've already won half the battle. Section 2. Preparing the dialectical scholar. The groundwork. You see, intellectual discipline requires rigorous groundwork before a single word of discussion is ever actually spoken. Let's move to and see how this builds using Mortimer Adler's brilliant framework for progressive scholarly inquiry. Before a seminar, scholars must move through 4 distinct levels. First up is elementary reading, just grasping the basic comprehension. Second is inspectional reading, which gives you a fast structural overview. Third is analytical reading, where you really evaluate the author's logic and evidence. And finally, the highest level, syntopical reading. This is where learners compare multiple texts and perspectives against one another. This 4th level, that's where those electrifying, truly great seminars come from. Once the reading is done, we have to ask the right questions. We have to move away from weak, literal questions like, did you like the book, or was the character good? Because those just hit a dead end immediately. Instead, we want strong, evaluative questions. Think along the lines of, to what extent does fear enable authoritarianism? Or can morally questionable actions be justified under extreme social pressure? The absolute best Socratic seminars spend almost all their time swimming in these deeper interpretive waters. Section 3. Rules of Dialectical Engagement, Cambridge Union Style. We've done the reading, so let's shift focus to the actual mechanics of engagement, bringing in the structured, evidence-based traditions of the Cambridge Union Society. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the concept of the steelman. Before you can critique someone's point, you must summarize their opposing argument so fairly and accurately that they actually agree with your summary. This completely prevents those lazy, simplistic strawman attacks we see all over the internet. It builds profound respect, it builds intellectual humility, and it proves you actually understand what you're disagreeing with. Let's quickly run through the core rules of engagement here. 1. Attack ideas, never people. No going after someone's character. 2. Steelman before critique, exactly like we just discussed. 3. Evidence over emotion. Your claims demand textual, historical, or empirical evidence, not just emotional confidence. 4. One speaker at a time, which requires active listening. And 5. Intellectual humility. Participants need to be allowed and heavily encouraged to publicly change their minds. Section 4. Structuring the Socratic arena, the physical space. let's transition into the physical and logistical setup you need to foster a successful dialectical environment. The physical setup of your room is huge because space literally dictates behavior. Contrast the traditional classroom layout with the seminar circle. Rows create passivity, a strict hierarchy, and a culture of lecturing. But circles create automatic eye contact, mutual accountability, and natural dialogue. If you want students to act like active scholars instead of passive listeners, you've got to ditch the rows. Here's a practical visual mental model of how an ideal seminar week actually unfolds step by step. Days 1 through 3, that's purely dedicated to deep reading and annotation. Day 4 is for developing those strong evaluative questions. Day 5 is a low-stakes mini practice discussion, just to shake out the nerves. Day 6 is the formal seminar itself. And Day 7, crucially, is for reflection and synthesis. During that formal seminar on Day 6, the inner-outer circle method is absolutely phenomenal. The inner circle is in the hot seat. They're the ones discussing, debating, and questioning. Meanwhile, the outer circle actively observes. They track the evidence being used, and they evaluate their reasoning of their peers. Halfway through, they switch. Switching these roles dramatically improves overall classroom engagement and keeps everyone accountable the entire time. I really want to offer this as critical coaching advice for moderators. Silence is productive. When you ask a complex question, there will be silence. Students need thinking time to process complex thoughts. As a moderator, you have to fight the urge to rescue that silence too quickly. Just let them think. Section 5. Mastering Rhetoric and Logic, Defending the Mind. Let's introduce the analytical tools scholars need to keep the seminar intellectually rigorous and logically sound. We rely heavily on Aristotle's rhetorical triangle. A strong, balanced debate relies on 3 equal pieces here. Logos, which is logic and evidence, ethos, representing credibility and integrity, and pathos, the emotional resonance. If someone leans entirely on pathos, like a lot of what we see online, the argument just collapses under scrutiny. Balance is absolutely key. It is also vital to teach students to spot logical fallacies in real time, things like the straw man, ad hominem attacks, or the slippery slope. Remember, especially in the social media age, formal dialectic is vital for teaching students a very hard truth. Just because a statement is delivered with supreme confidence definitely does not mean it's actually true. To master this, students should study the greats. They can study Christopher Hitchens, not to imitate his aggression, but for how he used structural evidence to dismantle weak logic. They can learn conversational persuasion from Stephen Fry, model the moral philosophy of Cornel West, and, of course, look to Socrates himself to learn how to cross-examine assumptions by gently revealing contradictions rather than just imitating verbal combat. Section 6. The Ultimate Educational Purpose, Beyond Compliance. Let's bring this explainer to its climax by zooming out to the grand philosophical why behind all of this structural work. So the crucial point is this. A true seminar-based classroom develops critical thinking, profound listening skills, humility, genuine scholarship, democratic discourse, and intellectual courage. This connects passionately to the historical purpose of education itself. We aren't here just for mere memorization. We're here to form thoughtful, informed human beings. I'll leave you with this final, provocative thought to reflect on regarding your own approach to discourse. Are you teaching compliance, or are you teaching intellectual courage? It's a question that literally changes everything about how we communicate. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning, keep seeking the evidence, and I'll see you next time.